Mr. Daniel Gruppe? Are you in there?
Who's asking?
Sorry, I'm from the Bell Charter newspaper. I was hoping to interview you about what happened at the Institute.
Come in. Please, take a seat. It's been a couple years since anyone's wanted to talk to me about what happened. Now, how much do you already know? Where should I start?
How about from the beginning?
From the beginning? My life didn't really begin until I was in prison. I was raised in an institute. Not the actually recognized academic type, just an organization that called itself such. About 8 years ago, they sent me on a mission to a neighboring country, ill named. I was to gather intel of what they were doing at a government facility there. The Institute had reason to believe they had gained information only the Institute was supposed to have. If that information was here, I was to destroy it. My infiltration was going fine. I was relaying information back to the others without issue. Then a particularly alert guard spotted me. The guard called after me, and I ran, trying to make it back out the way I had come in. The guard gave chase. Pretty spry, too, was able to keep up with me. I tried to outmaneuver him. I saw a tiny set of stairs leading to a raised portion of the building next to me. I ran up it, making it look like I was going to turn into the building. Then, at the last second, I hopped the railing, landing back down on the ground. The heavier slam I heard a second after meant the guard did the same thing. I grabbed boxes and crates and barrels littering the area and threw them down in his path. But the footfalls behind didn't seem to get any farther back. I came across a stored vehicle here, military. I jumped and slid over its hood, then turned around to its side, hoping he would miss that. Instead, he came around the vehicle, and we made a few circles around it before I knew this was not going to work. I broke away, continued running down this alley-like area. There were some of those movable guardrails. I chucked one in his path, trying to keep it standing upright. I hopped a fence next to it and climbed over. On the other side, I saw a stack of pallets taller than me. I pulled it as I ran past, causing it to fall over and clatter. I finally stopped, looking at the wall I had just created. I heard the steps slow down, stop, then turn and run around some other corner. The sounds dissipated. I made it to the next corner, rounded it, then saw a flash of something shiny hit me right in the head. There was an instant of pain, and then everything went dark. Up to that moment, every bit of info, audio and visual, was being broadcast through my mind back to the Institute, to the hive I was connected to. The Institute's founding goal was to bridge the gap between the mind and the brain. Do you know the difference between them? Yeah, most people don't. In this idea, the brain is the mass of muscle sitting inside your skull, handling subconscious functions like blinking and breathing and releasing necessary chemicals without you ever being aware or having to think about it. At least when it works normally. The mind is your conscious self, your self-awareness, your decision-making. You. And the Institute wanted to bring these separate states together, believing it would lead to stronger, more in tune minds. Like how physical exercise leads to stronger, more in tune bodies. And they were successful. Decades prior to my time there, they created groups of people who were able to use their minds to affect things outside their own body and immediate surroundings. But very quickly they decided to hide themselves and their discoveries away. To that end, one of the groups they developed were illusionists, People who could alter the surrounding perception of things, make things disappear to the eye, or even change its look entirely. The glimmering tower the Institute was housed in just outside the main city in Kerval, disguised, making it look like a run-down old wreck that if anyone even got near, would crumble on top of them. When I was at the Institute, they had already been running successfully for over 40 years, and my group was a new attempt, overseen by Director Kamel, who had been at the Institute since the beginning. They wanted to create a hive, one whose young minds were all connected to one another, so that we could relay thoughts, information, sounds, and visuals to each of the members, even on the other side of the planet. And that was the life I knew. I had sent them everything I could while I was conscious, but that blow put me out. When I awoke, I was already in a prison cell. I had no idea how long it had been. Would have figured out normally, but there were no clocks in the prison. The best we had to go off was the sun's position while out in the yard, and worse, I had no idea where I even was. Still in the main or somewhere else entirely. At the beginning, I said everything I could. My communication with the hive is likely all that kept me sane. It gave me the exact time, the day, and sane people to talk to. But no one, inside or out, knew where we were. There were no signs around to give clues, and the guards would not give any information outside of wake up and lights out. They were professionals. I knew something had to be up. But as a few days became a few weeks, thoughts began to creep in that I would never get the information I needed to get them to help bust me out. The hive could sense my doubts. They assured me they'll get to me, figure it out, eventually. Slowly, I got accustomed to the lifestyle now in front of me. I probably shouldn't have, but it was difficult not to. My attention shifted from the guards to the inmates. Discussions with them had to be careful, as most of them were insane or showing signs of it. One wrong step could lead a conversation down into a rabbit hole of nothing, or could turn violent. They had no better idea where we were. Any who were conscious when they were brought here were black bagged before being put on the bus to this place. Eventually, conversations came up as to where we had all come from. After finishing up one dead-end conversation, I was approached by another guy close to my age, maybe a little younger. He came up to me in the yard, quite shy, introduced himself as Michael. He asked if I really was from Kerval. I told him yes. He asked if I knew about the building just outside the city. I knew where this was going. But I couldn't deny to him I knew of it. That'd be more suspicious. But I only told him that. I knew of it. He asked then if I knew its true purpose. I told him to be a rickety old building that should probably be demolished. I tried pushing this interaction to the others. It had been a few days since I had any new information to share. This time I found it difficult. I don't think anything made it through. But then he perked up. He said I did know. Know what? I asked, trying to keep a skeptical tone. He lowered his voice, told me he was a bridge. There was no way. I kept my skeptical tone, asked if he meant like moving traffic over a lake. No, a bridge, one of the institutes, and he could tell I was using mental energy. Oh, shit. Sorry. A bridge was one of the groups in the Institute. Their initial goal... I actually don't know. Yeah, I don't remember. But whatever it was, the project didn't seem to turn out anything. They considered it a failure and shuffled its members into other, already proven groups. That's when the group's true powers were discovered. Bridges, as they came to be called, could channel different people's powers into another, or on their own could boost one person's powers, looping excess expelled energy back into them. And somehow, one of them ended up here. How the hell did he end up here? He said he was prone to sneaking out of the Institute, tried to enjoy outside life since most of us were forbidden to leave. In one of those times, he may have been caught stealing from a food vendor. So we were still in Cavalt? I asked him. He said it was possible, but he couldn't say for sure. Like the others, he was black bagged before being brought here. After that, I tried to excuse myself. I needed to get this info to the Hive. As I tried to move away, Michael blocked me, insisted he was telling the truth, that I had to believe him, that we were in this together now. I nodded politely and skirted around him and away, back to my cell. I stood at the sink, looking at myself. I needed to focus. I tried sending this info to the others. I could tell they weren't getting any of it. So, I tried something else. I tried to listen, receive rather than broadcast. I could hear their voices, but they were distant, faded. While struggling to hear them, a vision flooded my mind. I saw two kids. They were inside a cave. A boy on one side, a girl on the other. The echo from the cave made their voices difficult to hear, to understand. The vision felt so real. It shocked me right out of my focus. Where did that come from? It was a sign. This place was winning. I was beginning to go mad. I needed to get out. I went back out to the yard, searched for that Michael guy. Being a bridge, he could help boost my power, get me to reconnect. When I found him, he was in a conversation with another inmate. I walked toward him, and Michael noticed my approach, turning away from the guy to wave me down. At that, the other inmate freaked out, screamed that he would not be ignored. He grabbed Michael and kneed him in the stomach. I ran in, pulled Michael away, and put myself between him and the crazed inmate. We traded blows for a bit. I wasn't counting, but I'm pretty sure I got in more hits than he did. The guards then broke us up, dragged us both away in different directions. Michael left there looking unsure of what to do. As the guards dragged me away, they took the liberty of getting a few hits in themselves. They tossed me in a different cell and closed the door. The door was solid, not bars like the prison cells. Shit. Solitary confinement. In a prison that seemed designed to drive its inmates crazy. This was just another layer of it. Well, I couldn't do anything else. And I could do something the others couldn't. So I started trying to reconnect with the Hive again. strained and focused. And all I got out of it was a ringing in my ears. Tried again and again, 37 times. All I got were muffled voices. I'd hear a shocked sound from one of them every so often. I hoped it was because they could feel me trying to reconnect. I tried many ways to help myself. Walking around the room, trying to make it feel more casual. I laid on the bed. I took some time off thinking maybe I was stretching the connection too hard. All that did was make me miss the Institute so much more. But in the end, what worked was something I hadn't given much credence to before. I sat on the floor of the cell and got into a meditative pose. By then, I was willing to try anything. It took some time, some effort, but finally, their voices came through, clear as day. It was so amazing to hear them again. They assured me they're still looking for me. They'll find where I am and bust me out. They'll get me back to the Institute and figure out how to get everything back to normal. I have no idea how long we spoke. Hours, definitely. Maybe even a full day. I then heard a bang on the door. I had to go back out. I told them I didn't want to disconnect. They knew what this prison was like. Beyond my stories, they could see and feel what I had. They all assured me it would be fine. That we'll reconnect physically, then all go back together. Another bang came on the door, followed by a call to go to the other side of the room, away from the door. They told me to go. I hesitated, then disconnected. I did as the guard said, and he opened the door, slipping food inside, then closed it quickly. Time went on like this for way too long. Tried reconnecting with the hive again and again, but to no avail. Even the meditation pose didn't seem to get me there anymore. With not much else to do, I tried to reflect on that vision I had. I was able to see it again pretty easily. Take a deeper look at it. It was then I realized the boy, he looked like a much younger version of me. Was this me when I was a kid? Then the girl, a friend? This wasn't a vision of madness. It was a memory from before I was part of the hive. Then another memory, chained to the last, showed up. My younger self again. And the girl, my sister. Dad was off again being a deadbeat somewhere. But I didn't care too much. It gave us a chance to play, to not be subjected to his rage. We didn't have any money, but we didn't need it. The streets were our playground. Finally, after who knows how long, another bang came on the door, followed by instructions to sit on the bed. I did so, and he opened the door, motioned me to get out of the cell. As I passed him, another blow came to my stomach. I buckled, falling into the guard. They pushed me off and half walked, half dragged me back to the yard. Once there, they left me. He didn't realize I'd managed to swipe his ID badge. It didn't take long for Michael to find me. He hesitated at the sight of me. Guess I can't really blame him. Between the bruises still healing from the day of the fight and the fresh gut punch, I probably looked much worse for wear. After a moment, he thanked me for being there last week. He asked why I did that. I told him we're in this together. I asked him to help me over to a nearby bench. Once there, I finally took a look at that badge. Perfect. The name Malkov Prison was on it. I asked Michael then to help me to relay this information. He perked up, clearly excited about the idea. He agreed immediately and sat down next to me. I started trying to reconnect. I could tell I wasn't getting anywhere. I then felt Michael put his hand on my shoulder. Suddenly I felt a much clearer mind. I connected almost instantly. The others were relieved to hear me again. I told them I didn't know how much time I had and rushed through telling them the prison name. It only took them a few moments of research to get the location on the border between Ilmaine and Kerval. They immediately started to form a plan, figured they could get me out within a week. As I was playing out, one of them doing research related what they had found. This prison used to have breakouts constantly, enough so the prison was refurbished with all sorts of new security measures, mostly to make sure the inmates could never get word out to others. They succeeded. The next week could not have felt longer. It was actually 6 days later when the prison alarm started going off. It took a few minutes after the sirens were going. When the door to the yard was opened, one of the Hive members, David, was there and called out for me. I hurried to him, Michael following. The rest of the prisoners stood around, unsure if they should try to escape as well. I asked if it was just him. He said the others were here, helped with the initial push, but are now back outside setting up a perimeter. Through the halls, passing plenty of guards. Almost all of them were dead. I asked what the hell he did. He said they did what they had to. We followed and found ourselves out in front of the prison, not far from other buildings. I glanced around. He said that we didn't have time, that I needed to follow him now. I hesitated. I didn't know what to do. Something was possibly wrong with me, and if something was wrong, I didn't want to risk bringing that back to the Hive. David motioned again, and after a moment, all I could do was shake my head. I took off in the opposite direction towards some of the buildings and alleyway nearby. Michael followed my lead. David, however, was completely at a loss. He stood there for a few moments before getting angry and chasing after me. The last time I was fleeing a pursuer was back at the place that started all of this. By now, That was 4 months ago. I had been able to outspeed the guard back then, but after months of captivity, I wasn't exactly at my physical prime. I could hear David's footsteps catching up fast. I looked around the alleyway. Well, it worked once before. I started dumping things between myself and him. I made false turns up staircases, but none of it seemed to slow him down at all. Probably because he could see into my head. See what I was going to do a moment before I did it. The connection was clear. Probably because we were so close to each other. And so I took advantage of that. I started flooding his mind with my point of view, causing an overlay of our senses. It worked. He stumbled, made wrong moves, slipped and fell. I disconnected and managed to slide down a side alley. We hid for a bit, then moved on. David had no idea where we went. And at that point, I had no idea where I was going either. I just knew we had to put some distance between us and this place. We walked the rest of the day, northward. As the sun started to set, we knew we had to find some place to shack up. We found ourselves a run-down, abandoned industrial building. Did some light breaking and entering, and got a nice corner for ourselves on the 3rd floor. With a few moments to rest, I began to think. What were we even doing? What was the plan? I knew I couldn't go back to the Institute. Not yet. First, I needed to figure out what was wrong with me. Then either fix that or return. If that was the fix. Hopefully David and the others could forgive me. Then Michael spoke up, asked me what the plan was. I told him, I don't know. Not yet. Michael didn't say anything. I think he was feeling down. He wanted to get back to the Institute, and now by being involved with me, I was blocking him from that goal. I assured him we'll get home. Both of us. I may not have been totally convincing. We both slept uneasily that night. The next day, we needed to figure out more. Or at the very least, I did. I figured staying right where we were would help me to look into my mind. Get more of those memories flowing. Hoping getting that sorted out would fix my issues. In the meantime, Michael was getting hungry. He went out while I knuckled down. Trying to force memories didn't really get me anywhere. Was this all a mistake? Should I have just come back with David? That breakout. The guards. One of the Hive's previous missions crossed my mind. We did what we were sent for, but in the ensuing chaos, people got hurt. Some didn't survive. We did what we had to, and then we went back home. But now, those people, the pain I caused. What did I do? Why did I do that? Why didn't I just abort the mission? It was my fault! I'm trying to get a grip on myself. That was something I had never felt before, even when that mission was happening. Guilt. And now, I didn't feel like I was gaining something from trying to sort my problems out. That was all negative, and I didn't want anything more to do with that. Thankfully, that was interrupted by Michael coming back. He had gotten some food for us, and even a few pillows to use around the place. Initially, I just dug in, looking for any excuse to forget what had just happened. When I finished, something began to dawn on me. I asked how we got this stuff. They didn't give us any money in the prison. He reminded me why he was in prison in the first place. His light-fingered larceny is very helpful when there is no money. Even back at the Institute, there is no money. Everything needed is provided, and so, when he would get away from the Institute, he saw things in the city that he wanted. And they wanted money for it. Instead, he got the items a different way. And after some time, he got pretty good at it. Impressive. And at the same time, terrible. He just shrugged his shoulders, said he would pay for things if he could. He does it because he doesn't have much else of a choice. The next day was pretty much the same. No real progress on my end. I started to wonder what the long plan was. As much as I wouldn't mind the idea, I don't think we could shack up here forever. We would need to move on. Day 3, no real progress. Again, my thoughts were interrupted by Michael bringing in food. This time it was fish. It's not that I hate the taste of fish. I've actually never eaten it. It's the design. The flattened cylinder look, the bulging eyes, the fin at the end of the fish, it's all just... yeah. I decided to not eat that meal. Probably not a good idea when we weren't eating regularly anyway. I tried to go back to my thoughts, my memories, but my growling stomach kept pulling me out of any focus. It was just a miserable time. Then Michael started talking, asking what else I might want for the place. I tried giving him only one word, terse answers, a signal to leave me alone. But he kept bugging. I told him I really needed to get this done so I can go home. He stopped asking questions, but began to wander around, speaking out loud on things he could get to fill up the space. He finally turned back to me and asked what I thought. I burst. I told him I thought he was an idiot for bringing fish, for stealing things, and putting himself in danger of being thrown back into that prison, for following me in the first place. After my outburst, I felt like I could see clearly again. Michael looked scared. And so was I. I had never had that happen before. Never had an outburst like that. What was wrong with me? Michael held there for a few moments, then hurried out. I couldn't say anything. I was afraid if I tried to speak, it would just be more anger. It was dark when Michael came back. By then he had stolen a little electrical lamp for us to use. We stared at each other, both stone-faced. I finally spoke up, apologized for what I had said. It was unacceptable. Despite being away from my father for over a decade, entirely forgetting about him until recently, I still managed to become him. His tense pose became relaxed. He told me, I'm not my father. I don't have to be like that. I am my own person. I'm going through some difficult, changing times, but he wanted to help. He gave me a small rug, said I could use it to relax, meditate, focus on whatever it was I needed to find out. He was, far too kind. I slept pretty well that night. The fourth day came and went. No real progress on my end. Then the fifth day came. By then we had made the place pretty homey. Initially, I wasn't sure how long we would be able to stay here, but we were making it feel like it could be forever. It was feeling comfortable. Familiar. I was no closer to figuring out what the long-term plan was. By then, it probably didn't matter to me. Michael had stolen like a little pocket antenna TV. We were able to catch up on what was going on in the area through that. That's when we saw it. A local news station began reporting about a building appearing on the outskirts of Kerval. They showed the video. Initially, they were looking at wildlife around the Institute. At the edge of the camera was the rundown version of the Institute building. But then it began to change. The camera was pulled back and moved to look at the building itself. The disguise warped and then fell. They could see the real version of the Institute looking perfect. I'll admit, in that moment, I felt a big pull of being homesick. But that didn't matter. What did was, why did the illusion disappear? We needed to know, and the fastest way in was through me. The last time I attempted, my connection was so weak. I wasn't sure I would be able to see anything at all. Michael offered to give me a boost. I told him it's probably not a great idea. It's not just me peeking into the other's minds. It's a two-way connection. If I go into their heads and they feel me in there, they could peek into mine. Michael pointed out it's either that and we get answers now, or we start the hike back to the Institute, and that would take the better part of the day. I didn't see another option. I got into position, started trying to reconnect. I felt Michael's hand on my shoulder, and my connection being boosted. It still took some effort, but finally I got in. I poked around several of the members, tried to see what they were seeing, hear what they were hearing, in as gentle a manner as possible. I didn't need them knowing I was in there. There was a lot more noise going on. They were frantic about their search for me. That distraction made it easy for me to hop between them unnoticed. I went through 4 of them, then found David. He was with Director Kamal. He told Kamal with the illusionist powers overwritten, the disguise over the Institute had fallen. The public are going to start poking around sooner rather than later. Kamal dismissed the concern. With so many of the Institute helping them, they will easily overwhelm anyone who might trespass or attack. What they needed to do was focus all their efforts on finding me. I was the key to closing the loop. Kamal started talking about it being 5 days, but David suddenly held his hand up and the director stopped. I wasn't sure what he was doing, feeling a bit afraid what he might do next. Then I heard it. David speaking as if he were right next to me. There you are. I disconnected immediately. Michael got down, supported me, asked me what happened. They noticed me. They got our location. We need to move. Michael asked, where? I could only think of one place. Back to the Institute. Michael finally asked, why? There was so much noise. Not because they were frantic or panicked, but because there were so many other people. The hive is like a solid line, a circle, with 12 points equally distributed across it. Those 12 points were us. But now, with my connection weakening, the solid line connected to me has become more like a dotted line with holes in it. And now, inside that circle, there are so many more voices, more connections, hundreds, more than 1,000, possibly the whole Institute. They've all been linked into the hive. Michael asked how that could even be done. Bridges. With those holes opening up in my connection, they could have used bridges to push them into the hive. And now they need me to finish it. If they reconnect me, the holes will close and the circle will suddenly become much larger with many more points across it. Everyone they've connected. Once I had a few things, we headed out towards the Institute. It would take the better part of the day to walk back there. Michael followed, but kept a bit distant. Finally, he caught up with me, asked me, what good will it do me? going back there. I'd be doing just what they want. Kamel cared for us in the hive. I'm hoping I can talk him down from this madness. I told Michael he didn't need to go. I can do this on my own. At that, Michael stopped. I kept moving. At that point, I was certain I would be doing this on my own. Then Michael caught up with me, joined me at my side, told me, we're going to get home. Both of us. I didn't say it. I probably should have. But that gave me more courage. Made what we were walking into much less terrifying. As the sun was setting, we made it back to the Institute. The grounds were empty. No one outside. I figured at least one of the Hive members would be there to take me in. Walking into the atrium, the many floors above, all visible from here. On every step, at every railing, was every person in the Institute, all looking down at me, all with the same neutral, almost dead-looking expression. They were all part of the Hive, and they were all waiting for me. At the top of the stairs, directly in front of me, the director called out my name, said, "Welcome home." He started to descend the stairs. I told him I knew what he was doing. He said he knows that I got into David's head, heard at least some of their conversation. He said now he will no longer be left out of the gifts he has given to so many other children, people, the Institute itself. I told him I came back, thought I'd try reasoning with him, but seeing this, now I realize you're not someone who can be reasoned with anymore. The director just tilted his head, clicked his tongue, gave me a disappointed look. He asked, "Is that how I feel?" He motioned to everyone around, the entire Institute under his control. He told me I can't beat all of them. He would have me, reconnect me with the others, and everything will go back to how it was, only much larger in scope. I realized he was right. There was nothing I could do. Trying to fight would only result in being overwhelmed. Trying to run now would be the same outcome. Michael must have seen it all on my face. He suddenly bolted out from behind me, ran straight at him, and tackled the director. The director was definitely shocked, couldn't react fast enough to mount any defense. Michael had him on the ground, managed a few punches to the director's face before the closest people ran in and grabbed him, pulling him into the crowd. I saw David among them. Once I got hold of Michael, something ticked within me. I got up, ran to try to help him, but before I could make him more than a few steps, others grabbed me, held me in place. The director managed to get back up. He wiped a bit of blood off his lip, paid no mind to the direction Michael had been dragged off to. He just moved towards me. He taunted, said, See? We are too powerful together. No one can stand in our way. Whatever he was saying didn't matter. I could hear Michael's struggles, shouts, a scream. I couldn't see what they were doing to him. But maybe that's for the best. It would probably haunt me more than it already does if I had. But I had to do something. Something only I could do. David was in that pile. Well, it worked once before. I stopped struggling and focused. I tried flooding David's mind with my senses. I felt the connection, and then a snap. I could feel it. Time was up. My connection had broken. I felt everyone come tumbling out of my head. In a wave, I saw the entire institute turn back, their faces gaining life again. The ones holding me let me go. They all turned away from me and towards the director. He noticed the change as well. He spun around, trying to look at them all, trying to utter something, anything. But he had no words, no more charisma, nothing to explain or excuse his actions. They all descended on him quickly, their individual powers restored. I couldn't see what happened to him either. There was a plea, a scream, and then silence. Whatever happened, it ended him. The Institute took some time to recover. They housed me for a bit longer. The founders thanked me for what I had done, but informed me I was too old to be looped into another group. And the Hive members were too old to pull their minds back together again. I apologized to the others. They may not have wanted this, but they told me it was okay. Their memories and emotions returning were a new experience. We were exiled from the Institute, forced to leave. I spoke with Michael again on the day I left. He said he was sorry for what was happening. All I could say was, "Hey, I got you back home." At that, I left. The Institute is now at least publicly visible, though I don't think they're willing to share much of their knowledge yet. I started a search for my sister. One that admittedly still goes on to today. I still have a few leads to look into. I haven't seen Michael since. Probably couldn't through the Institute, but if he's still sneaking out, I might be able to find him around that area. I haven't spoken with any of the former Hive members either, but I don't think I'm ready for that yet. I want to find my sister. Figure out what happened when I was a kid. How her life has been. Once that part of my life has been restored and reconnected, then I can go back and speak with the others. This time, hopefully, as friends. And that's the end of my story. For now.
Okay. Just one question. You said how it ended was your connection breaking the entire hive. But were there other options? Like, if you had reconnected, would it have reset the original 12 positions? Kicked everyone else out?
Every day I think about that. It would have meant losing my memories, my emotions, my self again. But it would mean I would still be in the Institute. Still be able to see Michael. The hive wouldn't have been torn apart. Did I do the right thing?